Have you been nursing your baby to sleep? Do you worry that you're creating a bad habit that your baby can never recover from? Has somebody told you that you need to start sleep training your baby or change this habit? As a professional who works in the perinatal field, do you get asked questions about this topic and you don't know quite how to answer them because you yourself have done various things with your own children, but you are not really sure what the evidence says about nursing your baby to sleep? Today, let me ease your fears about making this choice for your family. We're going to talk all about nursing your baby to sleep, why it might be so controversial of a topic, and the various considerations there are as you're trying to make a decision for your family about what is right for you. Let's get into it.
When I began breastfeeding, I was blindsided by how difficult it was. I may have thought I was prepared, but having known only a handful of people who had ever breastfed and only seeing it up close from a couple of them, I had a huge learning curve. Since then, I've become a doula, a lactation consultant, and a childbirth educator. I'm your host, Lo Nigrosh, and I welcome you to the Milk Making Minutes, where we explore breastfeeding experiences through the lens of systemic barriers, so that you know your breastfeeding struggles are not your fault, and your triumphs really are the miracles you feel they are.
Before I get into any research studies, any stats, or facts, I want to preface this episode by saying this is a judgment and shame-free space. I'm going to be going into some research about what is quote unquote biologically and evolutionarily normal. And I recognize that the babies that were alive 100 years ago, 200 years ago, 1,000 years ago, their parents were not living in the same cultural and societal environment as you are living in today. And so all of us as parents are balancing, how do I meet the needs of my babies and my children, because it doesn't get easier as they grow, based on what they are showing me they need, what their own biological desires are, what might be evolutionarily or instinctually their preference, and what do I need to be healthy in the modern world. So many of us are navigating parenting in isolation. So many of us are navigating taking care of babies with very little external support. And that is not how humans took care of babies historically, anthropologically speaking. We raised babies in large social groups with lots of support. So, if you are listening to this and you are wondering what is the right decision for your family, look internally. Be interested in the information. Take it to know why your baby might be acting as they are, and know that your needs matter too, given your individual situation. So I want to preface everything I'm going to say with that. We all need to take care of our babies, and we need to take care of ourselves. And the happiest babies are those that have parents that are well taken care of. So with that being said, nursing at night and nursing to sleep, and in particular being close to parents, is anthropologically, evolutionarily normal. And I want to say this so that you know your baby is not broken. Your baby who wakes every time you lay them down in the bassinet to try to wash some dishes or fold some laundry or get a workout in, that is because of how humans developed over time. Nursing to sleep has been something that humans have done since humans were humans. It is something that our closest animal relatives do. And it is something that when we look at the anthropological research of what people groups all across the world do, it is something that is very normal. So, as I was digging into how do I want to present this topic in a way that is different than maybe you've heard it before or some other people have presented it, I found this really fascinating research study. I'll link it in the show notes. The authors are Alana Rudzik and Helen Ball, and it's called Biologically Normal Sleep in the Mother Infant Dyad, and it was published in the American Journal of Human Biology. They looked at a variety of studies, maternal infant sleep studies. They compared sleep measures in exclusively formula fed babies and exclusively breastfed babies in how the mothers reported their sleep and then how much sleep those babies were actually getting to show the amount of sleep babies got depending on the feeding mechanism and compared it to the perceptions of that sleep. I'll talk about what the data was in that study. But what I found really interesting in this article was they talked about how humans are classified. And there are animals are classified in many different ways. For instance, we're mammals, we're primates. And another way to classify animals is to think of animals that are precocial and altricial. So, precocial animals, the parent can put the baby in a nest and then wander off to forage. And that baby can stay satiated for a long time and they don't need to feed while the parent is foraging. And then the mom can come back and feed the baby again. And then once that baby has grown a little bit and developed more, then they can start wandering from the nest a little bit more. Precocial animals, precocial mammals at least, are animals like antelope, sheep, horses, and deer. So these animals all have really high fat, low sugar milk. So they don't get huge bursts of energy, and their milk provides longer term satiation. The other category that I'm comparing this to is altricial animals. So, altricial animals, they stay close to the feeding parent. And typically, they're hanging on the parent or they're following the parent around. They have really low fat milk and high sugar. And this allows for quick bursts of energy because they aren't ever very far from the parent that's feeding them. And so wherever the feeding parent goes, the baby goes with them, and they can signal that they're hungry and they can get fed frequently. We're talking about mammals here. And there's no need for that higher fat content milk. So I'm really talking about how this pertains to baby feeding. So human babies, it's hard to categorize them. When you just Google, are humans altricial or precocial? They show up as altricial. So they mostly fit that pattern, but they can't stand, walk, or cling to their mothers. And so there's some reasons for this. And what most people think is that, yes, we have this low fat, high sugar milk. So we have to stay close to our mothers. We can't be left in a nest for long periods of time and then only feed every few hours. We typically need to, as infants, feed very regularly. However, we are not able to, on our own, stay with our parent. So that is a big difference between most other altricial animals. Now, the explanation for this is that we are born more neurologically immature than other primates. And so, for the first year of life, we have very rapid brain growth, and we are incapable of the neuromuscular control required to undertake the cling or follow precocial strategy needed given the composition of our milk. And so it falls to the caregiver to keep the baby fed and in close proximity during the first months of life until the baby is able to come to the caregiver for their feeding. So you can see the implications here for nursing. It is our job as the feeding parent to keep that baby close to us, to recognize their signals, and to feed the baby when they're showing those signs of hunger. Whereas with many other species, the baby follows the mother around from almost from right away and is able to signal when they want that milk. If we leave our babies at night in a space that's far away from us, where they're in a totally separate room or in a totally separate sleep space, they are not able to give us those signals. And often it is the earliest signals that allow us to have a robust milk supply when we are feeding babies. So, those earliest signals are the rapid eye movement, the fidgeting, the starting to move. It's those sorts of signals when a parent feeding a baby from their body, typically that's like the best time, especially at night, to begin putting the baby on the body for that milk.
Hi, I'm Kanika, and you're listening to That's Total Mom Sense, the podcast, where I interview public figures on their life lessons in parenting, legacy, and built-in sixth sense.
Hey, what's up? I'm Kelly Rowland, and you're checking out That's Total Mom Sense.
Hi, this is Chelsea Clinton, and my experience on That's Total Mom Sense was fantastic.
It's me, Bobby Brown. Can't wait to share my story.
Thank you to my guests, brand partners, community, and you for making this show possible. Episodes released every Thursday wherever you listen to podcasts. You can join my tribe by logging on to thatstotalmomsense.com and by following me on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram at Kanika Chadda Gupta. Now let's dive in to today's episode.
So we know that the biology of early infancy anticipates that babies should feed regularly during the night throughout the first year of life due to the energetic needs of that rapid brain growth, and that they will spend a large proportion of sleep time in their active REM like sleep and less time in quiet sleep in early infancy, with the proportions changing as they mature. So, babies aren't born with a circadian clock, and it takes several months for day night rhythm to become established. And biologically normal infant sleep, according to this, and many studies show this, involves frequent night waking for feeding and interaction with a mother who sleeps in close physical proximity to her infant. And I'm quoting there from that study. The biology of the infant dictates that we are feeding frequently through the night. Now, so some might say, okay, we need to feed through the night, but why feeding to sleep? That's a different thing. So, I want to talk to you a little bit about the hormones that are present in human milk, particularly in nighttime human milk. So, the levels of melatonin are higher at night. Melatonin helps with the timing of your circadian rhythm and with sleep. And so babies, as I mentioned, are not born with a circadian rhythm. Having more melatonin in that nighttime breast milk helps babies to establish their circadian rhythm. Secondly, There is tryptophan in nighttime breast milk, which is a sleep-inducing amino acid. It's the same amino acid that is in turkey. That makes people feel really sleepy on Thanksgiving Day when they've had a lot of turkey. So this actually nursing to sleep at night in particular from the milk from your body at night helps babies to feel more sleepy. It also has amino acids that promote serotonin synthesis, and serotonin makes the brain work better, promotes good mood, and helps with sleep wake cycles. So, I've gone into a little bit of the biological norm. I've gone into what is present in human milk that makes it possible for babies to sleep. And now I want to talk a little bit about where our sleep recommendations even came from, because I find this to be so fascinating. This all comes from that study I already cited that will be linked in the show notes. And we know that the recommended sleep ranges that were given to us for infants were not actually based on any studies of what infants needed, but rather they were based on averages of peers. And so they started studying how babies slept and then taking averages and then saying, okay, so on average, babies took this many naps for this many hours and they slept this amount of time at night. And so this is how much sleep your baby should be getting. And that's what they were recommending. But it wasn't actually based on anything that helped us to know how much sleep was beneficial for a baby. There is a graph. I'm not going to go over it, but you can find it in the study if you're really interested. We now know that infant sleep needs are hugely variable, both between infants of the same age and an individual baby throughout the first year. So there was a systematic review and a meta-analysis of data accumulated on normal infant sleep and child sleep across 34 studies. This was done by Galland et al. In 2012. And remember, 2012. So this is 11 years ago. And what they found was there was wide variability in infant sleep duration across studies in the earliest age groups, so 0 to 2 months, 3 months, and 6 months, with individual study means varying from 12 to 16 hours, spanning from 8.8 to 22 hours. Only at about 12 months of age does consistency begin to appear between interstudy means for sleep duration. And so the author of this article goes on to say these one size fits all sleep recommendations don't really work. Babies are individuals. It's the same with feeding, right? I always tell people just because the averages that babies tend to feed every 2 to 3 hours doesn't mean that your baby will feed every 2 to 3 hours. Your baby might feed every 45 minutes, depending on your baby's needs and the storage capacity of your body. Your baby might feed every 4 to 5 hours. It's the same with sleep. So if you are stressing about what your baby needs, I would tune in to your baby because your baby is going to tell you what your baby needs. And of course, you can talk to a sleep consultant, a sleep expert, somebody who understands the science of sleep. But in the end, you'll do better for yourself to tune into your baby's needs and lower your own stress so that your baby isn't stressing out about sleep. And then what we found was that the earliest studies followed adult models of sleep. And we know that adult sleep patterns just are very different from babies. They don't have the same needs for brain development, and they don't need to wake up in the middle of the night to get this high sugar milk for their brain development. Anyway, I encourage you to check this study out. And as you're thinking about, are you creating a bad habit? I always like to remind people these decisions are up to you. How much can you take? And if you are making the decision based on worrying what will happen in the future, is my 5-year-old still going to be nursing to sleep? Is my 7-year-old still going to be nursing to sleep? Is my 15-year-old still going to be nursing to sleep? The answer is decidedly no. Your 15-year-old is not going to be nursing to sleep. You are not creating that bad habit. It is not about a sleep association. It is about what your infant biologically expects from you. However, I recognize that you might have a job you have to wake up for. You might have other children you need to care for. You might feel very tired because there is nobody else who is helping you with this little baby who relies on you for so much. And so there might be some allowances that you need to make. There might be some changes that you need to make as you're trying to decide what to do. I think in my next episode, I'll talk about ways that you can gently begin to help your baby not to nurse to sleep. I will, in that episode, link some of my favorite people who specialize in sleep because I think that is really important. With that being said, if you have any questions about nighttime nursing, maybe you need to find some great positions to make nighttime nursing better for you. That's something I can definitely work with you on virtually. Maybe you need to find a good balance between bottle feeding, pumping, body feeding. Maybe you are thinking about adding in some pumping sessions for going back to work. Or it might be, I am your girl. I would love to be the person that helps you to work through these things. So reach out, quadmemberservices.com, always linked in the show notes. If you would like to have fun on TikTok answering questions with me, find me there. And if you know somebody who is struggling with this sleep question, pass this episode along to them. It helps a lot. Thanks. Bye.